Hey everybody, welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Rob, how are you today? And we've got an exciting show ahead.
Yes, it's great to be back doing the show, Todd. And yeah, it's an exciting time for the New Media Show to have some representatives from Facebook join us. I know they've been working hard behind the scenes to kind of get their new podcast experience in the Facebook platform kind of built out, and been talking to them, for many months now, and trying to help them with that process. And they're getting it off the ground. So what I'd love to do is just let you know who we have on the line here. So we have Chelsea White, who's a product manager for podcast core experiences at Facebook. So I'm sure she's had a very much a critical role in building this all out, and she's responsible for the playback and listening experiences. And so I'm sure those questions will come up. And then we're also joined by Irina Lamb, who's a product manager as well for the creator ecosystem. So speaking to all those content creators out there is an important part of this as well. So thank you, ladies, for joining us on the show to help kind of unpack what Facebook is doing with podcasting. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, and we've been excited too, where lots of podcasters are, we see the Facebook forums all day. They're talking about what's going on with podcasting, and I'm excited to really get some deep details here. I think the biggest question, and I'll let you guys, interject in what you want, but a lot of podcasters say, how come only a page? How come we can't do it to my group? So I think maybe we'd start that one off as maybe the first question. And then if you guys want to interject anything about the overall, what Facebook has planned and what you can reveal now, I think that would be good too. So maybe we'd start with that. Then you can answer the question as a follow-up.
Yeah, sure. Chelsea, did you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we definitely have heard that feedback. We'll definitely say we're new here. Why we started out with connecting podcasts to Facebook is because it was a very well under to like entity connection model that exists for other media types across Facebook. We know people want to see podcasts in groups. We know there's a lot of engagement in podcast groups. So definitely exploring other methods, but this has just made the most sense for us, and being able to move pretty quickly to in a really quality and understood experience.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what the experience is today. I mean, what you guys have actually rolled out, and how podcasters can participate in that. It seems like a pretty seamless process, but if you kind of step through it for us a little bit, for those that may not be familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll probably have Irina talk a little bit more about RSS claiming, but end to end, and then she can jump those kind of creator podcaster details. So back at end of June was when we first published out anything around the podcast, the Facebook podcast. And so at this point, podcasters and creators can use our RSS claiming tool ultimately to self-claim a public RSS feed, and then tell Facebook that they want to publish it to their Facebook page. Once then access this via newsfeed, via those podcast pages, and then also Audio Hub, which is a audio and podcast destination. And then they can discover new content or access the content they love and consume it via a couple of different listening experiences. So they can do it while they're scrolling through the app via our mini player, so really allowing them to continue kind of multitasking, and then also screen player, allowing them to kind of really engage with a couple of different like playback features and things like that. And then also fully background. So being able to lock your phone, throw it in your pocket, and continue consuming these, or being able to use your phone in other ways. So those are kind of our really key listening experiences. Right now, podcasts that are published and new episodes generate podcasts. And so like we said, those do appear in newsfeed. You're able to share comment, you're able to react to this podcast content, which is something fun. And then now we're also out clips. So you're take a segment of a podcast that really resonated with you, and then ultimately share that as well. So really excited about kind of the social connection, social sharing aspect that we get to leverage here for podcasts.
So is that sharing for the content creator or the page owner, or is that for listeners to actually share that?
Both actually. Yeah,
Oh,
this is
okay.
this experience that benefits both sides of our ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
there. So the page admins or content creators can then go and reshare that, the post or create a clip, but also for our listeners. And we know that recommendations are so powerful, especially personal.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
being able to kind of bolster discovery in that way, to take a short clip and then share that with your timeline, knowing that my best friend made this recommendation as opposed to some sort of algorithm or model, definitely carries a bit more weight with listeners. So
Got it.
Irina, do you want to talk a little bit about claiming? That's pretty new.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask
Yes,
about that.
yes. Let's do it. So for podcasters, we recently launched last year an ability for all pages to be able to add their podcast to Facebook. And so how that happens is through your page settings, there's like a new drop down in the menu for podcast settings. And then there's a button there. You can click add podcast. And then, this flow isn't super novel. We wanted to honor and just understand the expectations that podcasters already have in the industry and make it as seamless as possible. And so you just take your RSS feed from your hosting provider like Libsyn or Blueberry, and then you pop that into the field, and then it kicks off a kind of claiming validation flow. So we'll send off an email that's attached to your RSS feed, and it will contain a code, and then you just pop that code into that podcast settings page to validate that you are the right owner to associate this podcast with your Facebook page. And then after that, you just hit publish. And in that same flow, you're able to opt into clipping or to clips. And then you can also view our terms of services, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
thing that I was going to ask on the claiming process is a lot of podcasters maybe even have a second show, but they do it through the same page. Can there be two shows claimed within a single page?
Yes, we do support multiple podcasts per page.
Oh, awesome. Also, I wanted to emphasize too, if you're a podcaster, make sure that email address that's in your RSS feed is actually valid, and that you check on it on a regular basis, else you might miss that email. Right.
One thing that is another thing that's came to kind of the surface too is folks are saying, "Oh, this is just a mobile experience." And I know I don't know what the percentage is at Facebook that's mobile versus desktop, but is there a plan for desktop exposure as well?
Yeah, talking a lot about that. There's no timelines that I'm looking to share right now or any firm commitments around timeline, but we know that our listeners and our podcasters where they like making Facebook podcasts accessible across all our surface is definitely where we want to be. However, as you'll hear us say probably a couple of times, we're newer here and we're trying to be very intentional about the experience that we're rolling out. Experience where we are before we continue to make podcasts accessible in a number of different places. And so definitely right, Android and iOS native apps.
Ah, got it.
One of the things that was a positive, I can give you feedback from what we're hearing so far too, is podcasters are very happy that the playback is sticky, so they can go on and have an additional experience within the app or on their news feed, but yet the podcast will continue to play it. It's not like where you have to be there watching a video clip and you flip off and it's gone. The actual playback is sticky, and that way they can, continue to do what they're going to do and still have the full immersive experience of Facebook while listening to their favorite show.
Yeah, I agree. That's so important to us. Multitasking is going to be key. So we're really excited to continue building out those multitasking opportunities and benefits. But it was definitely one of the key sticking points for us in being able to roll out this experience. Is brand new audio content in general is brand new to Facebook and specifically podcasts because they're long that we're allowed to consume this content when they want it, how they want it. Multitasking on the go is something that we're kind of keeping top of mind as we continue working and rolling out here.
Considering other platform launches that we've seen, our tech support hasn't blown up. there hasn't been a whole bunch of people, like, oh my God, and I'm not showing up, or how come? And, usually they come to us when there's an issue. But if a podcaster is having challenges getting their show on a page, maybe there's a problem with the claim process or whatever it may be, what's their, how should they contact the Facebook team for help?
Yeah, so we're currently still building out better like support flows for this, so more to come in the future. But one of the best routes to do right now to report something is just in the top right corner of your Facebook UI. There's like a drop down arrow, and then you can click a button to be able to report a bug. So that's an option. We also have several help center pages as well to just guide through what to look for in your RSS feed. If you have questions around some of the errors that you might have received when you were trying to claim, just more guidance on that too. But trying to build it out. So definitely still early days there.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, that's why it's important to have a valid email address in there, so that'll keep the information flowing. One thing I did want to ask about too, and this is, for those that are outside of the U.S., it seems to be a recurring issue for many folks wanting to get involved in tech platforms that are just getting started. But what's the thoughts around it? The platform only supporting podcasts in the U.S. only right now, or is it in Canada too? I'm not quite sure.
So we do content from outside the U.S. So podcast creators from over can go through that RSS claiming process and still get benefits of distribution. In terms of listenership, right now we are gated to U.S. listeners only. But again, very top of mind here. So we are in the future.
So are you saying someone in the EU, as an example, or let's say the UK, they can add the podcast to their page now? The US listeners will be able to hear it, but until you roll out in the UK or wherever else globally, they won't. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So we support global podcasters at this point.
I got you. So I don't think that was known to me before to this.
I didn't quite understand that. So anybody can submit. It's just it won't be visible to everyone. It'll just be visible to listeners in the U.S. Okay, I see what you're saying.
I know we've got a few news organizations listening to this today, so can you feed them a bone? What are we looking like for time frame? Is it months, years? Are we? I know sometimes and I'm under NDA and I don't even know. So, so any ideas?
Yeah,
I know this is a hard question.
Yeah, we definitely expected some hard questions today, but so I will say the goal is definitely not years.
Okay, that's good.
So definitely not years, but again, not willing to commit to learning as we go. We're absolutely paying close attention to the data. What learnings we can really nail down where we are. So again, until the name of the game here. And so we're really, really making sure that we're going to do right by both sides of the ecosystem, our podcast creators and our users. And then the US is just a really, really well understood market for us. So as we expand, we make sure we do it right. And that's really where we're focused in terms of our phasing and our prioritizations here.
So Todd, let me ask a really important question too, and that's really relates to metrics. What are you guys doing on that side to support podcasters knowing how many people are actually listening to content through Facebook?
Yes, this is top of mind for sure. Thinking about metrics and how we can help podcasters be armed with data to understand what's listening behavior looking like on Facebook. We don't have a strict timeline on this yet, but I promise that we are actively thinking about this right now and where that fits in. For now, we just encourage using the insights that you get from your hosting provider. But that said, very aware that I think we can provide additional color around like audience or just like listening behavior as well. And so trying to figure out what that looks like for us and how we can create value.
I think I've mentioned this in an email the exchange that we had, and just for the public's clarification, my advice back to your team was podcasters live on metrics and they love data. And if, when they get data from platforms, you look at what some of the other major platforms that have provided some metrics back, they get a little more love when it comes to telling their audience where to go listen. So I'm sure that's going to make a lot of folks excited. That's top of mind. And that, we can, as hosting providers, we can give them, the bottom line,
Right.
but we really have no insight into who, how long, where. Well, we know where usually,
Right.
but really there is, that extra client side data is very valuable to them for, being able to build media kits and growth and planning. And so excited you guys are looking at that heavily.
Yeah, that and also the clips part too. Is that in your plans on the metric side too? Right.
Definitely something that we're
Yep. So we believe that Facebook, we know a little bit of a lag or overlap. Yeah. But we're definitely excited too, because we know how important these metrics and what you're able to show them about demographics or whatever are going to be important. So no change in that. We are encouraging them to continue using their hosting provider. So it's not like they're losing anything there, but we do that we'll be able to offer a lot once we start rolling out creator insights and things like that from our side.
So let me ask this one, Todd. How are you guys capturing that clip? Are you guys taking a just deep link into the media file, or are you guys taking that that section and creating a separate file for it? Just curious.
Yeah, we actually are taking that section and then creating a file. So we're not serving users. So basically the way now is taking that public RSS feed, ingesting that, and then streaming it. We're not serving users episode from our servers. However, clips is the one place that we actually are taking that segment and then storing that and providing that, because then that becomes a user post or a creator of that RSS feed in that same kind of traditional way.
Okay. Do you have, I know that this is relatively new. You've come out of the gate pretty strong here over the last couple of weeks and so forth. Where do you, what's the feel from the team so far, if you can, on how adaption's been? Well, what do you feel from your side, if you can share? Basically, are you happy with the engagement? Are you happy with the usage so far? Where do you think you're at?
Yeah, I think that we're now, given just launching this experience, we know there's a lot of work to do. We really did focus on just like a very listening experience, which is not ultimately really winning and really delivering the most value. But for where we're at, we're pretty excited. It's been interesting as we continue to roll out things like clipping and captions and stuff like that, to see how users are discovering these new features. And really just looking at kind of retention metrics and things like that. So not just our users exposed, but ultimately our, with our notifications, with the way that distribution is going to come back. And so that's just really.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and how are you guys thinking about podcast discovery? So let's say a Facebook user is looking for a podcast on your platform to connect with, and thus connect with a page. Are you guys thinking about any kind of aggregation of discovery or search capability? I mean, beyond just the clip sharing, what's your thinking on that side?
Yeah, absolutely. So outside of clip, obviously our newsfeed tool is a really, really powerful tool to surface both connected and unconnected content, as well as our audio hub. And so that's that audio and podcast destiny that we rolled out last month. And that's a really powerful discovery method for users that they love, they want to continue to come be there, and 80% of the time get back to that one podcast show they love, but making discovery easy, making sure that the recommendations are personalized, that we're continuing to update them and improve those models is going to be really, really great, because that's one of the key user pain points or problems. Discover there's not really a really great method to consistently stay up to date on new content, and so that audio hub surface with a number of different recommendation units is it also helps us
just like
so a power user again is going to listen to podcasts every day. They've got their 10 shows, religious listeners of that. are maybe they don't listen to podcasts at all, but they discover it here and they're like, oh my gosh, I love that person, that creator. I had no idea they had one. Being able to see them, kind of deepen their engagement with podcasts, those really simple sampling of content is going to be awesome, I think, for those particular, part of our base.
With Facebook, largely you look for likes, you want to share those types of things. From that perspective, then I understand sharing clips, but what's the typical feel then if I want to share an entire episode to another page or to a news feed? Um, is it just a seamless experience as if I was sharing a post or a video? Is it the same? Is it has the same experience?
Correct. Yeah, you're going to be able to share it via. So our share entry point is going to be the same. So that's very familiar for users today. And that's the sharing episodes, but definitely really excited about what else we can do around making that experience. With clips, it's just the beginning, but I think that users are going to find that to be pretty familiar.
Yeah, it's like Rob and I, when we do this show, we do Facebook Live and we go live a few other places too.
Yeah.
But I do like now that I don't have to worry about coming back into Facebook a couple hours after the show's posted and post to the page that there's a new episode. It's just going to be there and available. It's one less step that I have to do as a creator now in getting the content on Facebook. So I think this is. For me, you probably save me, 5 or 10 minutes based upon how much time it takes me to write the post and write the copy and, put the link in and all that stuff. So I think from that perspective, I'm excited because it just saves me 10 minutes every time I post a podcast.
Yeah, I think that's something we're
Go ahead.
we're excited about having the whole Facebook ecosystem support you as a creator, how all of these audio products work together, as well as some of like the existing products that you already use across Facebook.
Yeah. So when a podcaster creates a new episode, they upload it to their RSS feed, it shows up in Facebook. I'm assuming that once that episode shows up, those that are following that page get a notification in their wall, right? That there's a new episode, right? Or how does that process? I mean, does that process work pretty much the standard way? Or is there something unique, or is there settings that a listener can go in and set the notifications?
Yeah. So what you described, if you're following the page that hosts this content and a new episode is published, you're going to get that notification and be able to really quickly access that content.
Okay.
That is pretty key, but we're excited for sure about some features. One thing in the next few weeks or so is being able to kind of tighten that connection model a little around like subscribe to the podcast and being able to actually get to more specifics than just the page level conversation.
So you're going to use the term subscribe? Is that what you're? I'm just curious.
Yes. That is the plan today.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good, because there's been a big movement in the industry to move towards follow, right? So, which is Todd and I think that's a less engaged connection, where subscribed is definitely a more of a commitment. So,
agree. Yeah, it tells us a lot. It's a pretty to subscribe to content and follow. Very understood and used
right.
like method of connection across Facebook already. So that distinction is important.
So a lot of people collaborate together and they're in networks and so forth. And maybe the network has a page and maybe the individual podcaster has a page. So is it possible to have the podcast listed on 2 pages?
Probably not yet, Todd.
Is Irina frozen?
Okay, so example, let's say I'm part of a network, okay, and I have 10 shows in the network, and I have my own page. So is it possible to have my show on my page and also on the network of people I'm working with? Can it be in 2 places at once? Oh,
you can have multiple page, not yet where you can have a single podcast across multiple pages, but definitely I've received a lot of feedback and definitely have already been thinking about that. in terms of
Yeah.
how we can access podcasts and better make sure that people can find them and engage with them.
Yeah, it's good that you added that to your to-do list, because I
Mhm.
think it would be a powerful connection to bind together the networks that have multiple shows as well. So
Or
yeah.
even those in the or even those. Oh,
Sorry.
we lost. Hopefully, she'll be able to come back. We
Lost Irina. Yeah.
Yeah, I lost Irina. So I think what will happen over time is that I'm sure you're going to get just, a lot of feedback and some of it very, very passionate about it. So we're excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, no, and we're excited about that. Like we said, we're really do right by both the listeners and the creators. So we've already been getting a lot of feedback in the last few weeks via Twitter, via Reddit, and then obviously really encouraging people to use it's called Report a Problem. But listening, so keep it coming. We're really excited to hear what really resonates and what folks are looking to see.
So is there any part of your strategy that, or at least that you can talk about at this point, that has anything to do with monetization? Any parts?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the kind of the way that we're kind of looking at podcasts term is really just creating this holistic experience where we are being able to connect for the users, the discovery, and then for the creators, the distribution, the monetization, and ultimately the creating of that community or that social connection kind of engagement model. Nothing specific. I know Irina will probably be back too, but nothing specific that we're looking to announce about monetization, but it is one of the key pieces of the creator value that we're looking to get into, because what's really important for us is to, of course, the bigger partners and the more established media companies and things like that. Also, the everyday creators, especially we started to see so people creating new podcasts, and we know that podcasts, probably more so than other media types, are so personal to people. And so being able to provide that connection model for some of the newer niche everyday creators and helping them make this a business or make it sustainable, continue providing this content out to their users is going to be really key. And monetization is a big part of that.
Right. So what's the scope of that you guys are thinking about? Premium advertising? I mean, or all of it, of what's possible?
And I think we have Irina back too. So we're talking.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
No worries. Monetization, I'm not sure what we wanted to share in terms of scope around that.
Yeah, so definitely also something that's top of mind as well around monetization. I mean, I think, like, just to be honest, there's a lot that we can do to support podcasters. This is a space that we know a lot about already. But again, to Chelsea's point earlier, we're trying to do right and just like learn and study from the beginning and understand what our role.
Right.
For now, just continuing to monetize based off of the ads that you already have in your content. So even if it's streamed on Facebook, you'll still continue to be able to monetize on that. And then forward thinking around what that might look like for content on Facebook and monetization opportunities, that's coming later.
Could a podcaster on the platform advertise their podcast through Facebook ads currently today? I'm just curious.
I would assume so, like using Facebook ads to promote their podcasts.
They cannot today. That is not.
They can't today.
Okay. No, not today. The only ads are your integrated ads through your, SB, and we're respecting that and not inserting any of ours that are at this time. But I think, in general, you're familiar with all of the different.
Oh no, yeah, I think I was talking about if a podcaster wants to promote or advertise their show to broadly across Facebook, buying into your your current ad program.
They could probably boost a post, could they, or not? Does it consider? Is it
at this point you cannot?
Okay.
I think that would be pretty popular, because I think about the posts that we boost just as a company and have a decent response rate when we target it the way we want to. So I think that's something that probably would be of high interest of podcasters to be able to to boost a podcast post, and it may not be a lot of money that they throw at it, but they could get. It's really what podcasters today. The number one thing they're looking for is, how do I grow my audience? How do I grow? How do I get more exposure? How do I get found? And so I think if you had that available in the future, I think that would be pretty popular. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Rob, there's I was going to look at the chat room and see, did anybody that's in the chat room currently have questions for the Facebook team? I'm looking at YouTube, and I'm also looking at the Facebook Live. We've got quite a few people on the YouTube channel. So if you have a comment or have a question, please get it in there right now. We don't have much more time with the Facebook team. So,
well, while we wait for that, what online websites or resources can current podcasters go to learn more about the platform and see screenshots and see things so they can figure out? I know you have some links out there, but is there anything new with that, or that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think we have. So the Help Center articles I had mentioned, there's like some RSS guides and just all what the RSS claiming flow looks like. We also have had a couple of newsrooms about audio in general, but also highlighting podcasts and giving kind of like a few sneak peeks there. But obviously, you can also try the consumption experience for yourself as well.
Yes, the best place to go is the facebook.com/creators/tools/podcasts. Is that the best one?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we can
Rob, you had it memorized. I didn't.
It's actually written down in front of me here on my screen.
I was going to say,
I know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a great page that is specific to Facebook podcasts. So that's what I want to get at. It's at facebook.com/creators with an S /tools/podcasts. So if you wanted to just go read a lot more about Facebook podcasts, that's a great place to go.
So I do have some feedback. Eileen earlier said in the show, I love the way the animation looks when we see the episode. She said, we can add podcaster mobile now too, ! And then she said, maybe this is still company confidential. She says, any idea how many podcasters have added their show to Facebook?
Yes, this is a great question. I cannot share exact numbers, but I will say there's been a lot of growth and excitement from the podcaster community, which we're excited to see. I mean, we're early and we're entering an established industry. And so we had some nervousness around, like, do people want us here? But we do think that there's a lot that we can offer, especially from the social angle and bringing people together around the content that they love. And so with that, the growth has been looking promising enough that we're continuing to really focus on that.
Right.
And we've gotten some established content on the platform already, like the Joe Budden Show and Lady Gang. And so we're continuing to focus on that and just bringing on more folks.
Irene, I think what you're going to find, and this is something that, Rob and I have talked about for years, and the definition of podcast has morphed over time. And in the end, we don't care where they listen as long as they listen. So I think, you guys are the next 800-pound gorilla to join the podcasting space, and I say that in a kind way, because you guys are big, you're a monster company, so you have people are on Facebook every day. So for creators, I think this is going to be huge in the long term, from a discovery, from, audience being able to share the social tools that are already built in. So, don't be worried. We're welcome you to the, the podcast space. I'm as excited as anybody to have Facebook supporting podcasting.
Yeah, that's exactly why we wanted to have you on the show, is so we could spread the word and get people understanding the platform that's so critical to so many podcasters, to connect with you, know who you are, to understand how it works, and it's clear. And I think you guys have done a terrific job of doing that. So I think from what we're seeing in the preliminary numbers, at least at Libsyn anyway, we're seeing pretty significant upside growth already. So you guys could be cracking that top 4 list for the most places, the most popular places to listen to podcasts here pretty quick, if you guys roll it out, especially if you roll it out internationally. I think you'll really see it fast growth.
And I think too is to understand that at some historical level, if you look at the top players in the space today from a global consumption standpoint, Apple's obviously a huge player in the space. Spotify's made an impact. Google Podcasts has made an impact. But beyond that, very few other platforms even ever break 1%. There might be 8 platforms that break 1% global market share. So, we'll see. And again, I haven't looked at the data. Rob, you have, but you get busted above 1% within a month or two, and you're on a rocket climb. You're going to get huge attention by the space because you'll be in every. It's going to show that the engagement's there. So it'll spell out real quickly or not where people are listening.
And then we'll see you with a booth at conferences like Podcast Movement.
Yes, we'd love to be there.
Irina actually got to do a little podcast segment.
Yes, I had a session with our partnerships lead, Kristen Freethy. It was great to participate. I'd love to be there in person. So next year.
We did have a YouTube question come in. It says, why is Facebook interested in podcasts, and is the team thinking about hosting podcasts on Facebook's own servers? Ooh, that's a big question.
Do you want to split that one?
Yeah, I can like what got us here, because I mean, like we've definitely talked about, the podcast industry is established. There definitely are some key, like you said, there are maybe 8 that are that's primarily on like consumption and directory type of spaces, as opposed to really kind of connecting the. We know people are passionate about podcasts. We know it's very personal to people. And we know, like looking at Facebook, we have 170 plus million people connected just to podcasts. And that's over a couple 100,000 podcast pages, not even getting into like the fan groups and the different podcasts also exist, where we see a ton of really deep engagement and also a lot more activity than a lot of the other group types, right? And so that's where we don't necessarily just want to become a consumption player. That's not really, like, there are a bunch of those out there. We really, really want to do those, combine the monetization, which can also be the hosting and also the discovery, and also just providing opportunities for people to connect with other fans that are in that particular niche topic that none of your other friends are actually listening to. And that's really where we can differentiate, especially on the listener side. And then just looking at the sheer volumes and obviously our platform, what we can do in terms of the distribution and reach, helping, bigger creators and smaller creators, better engage with their existing followers, but also introducing new audiences to these shows is that we can deliver value. So super, super excited these coming months and coming years for what we can do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
ahead,
Chelsea,
Irina.
I just wanted to ask you something really quick. I mean, because I see that you were a product manager for Facebook's Messenger platform. So you'll be able to share an episode via Messenger, I'm assuming, at some point, or can you do that today?
Not do it today, but you absolutely will be able to. That's also something that's really exciting for us. Like we said, being able to access, I'm not sure if you followed it, but last year, one of our big priorities were cross-app communication, being able to communicate with our platforms wherever you are. And so I think that still holds true for what we're doing here, especially as we're looking to tap into a couple of different segments and demographics and things like that. So it'll be
and clips too. I could see that being a good play for clips.
It's a nice bite-sized segment about a particular portion of of some shout out about a I can imagine the host has tried something new and shouts it out. Being able to kind of highlight that little segment and then make it accessible wherever you want to is going to be pretty big. I think that we find that that'll resonate a lot with both the listeners and the creators.
Yeah.
Irina,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
For the hosting provider question, pretty brief. No plans on this right now. We're just focused on supporting RSS feeds.
That's good news for us.
Right. Exactly. Keep that going.
Yes. Let's just stay in that lane.
I see both of you are big fans of music. And I think Irina, you've worked in the music side of things. So is that what attracted both of you guys to get involved in podcasting? Because there seems to be a real strong mapping between podcasting and music. I know I used to work for Microsoft, and I was the only podcast guy that worked on the Zune podcasting experience, and I was the only other person on the team that wasn't involved in music.
Ooh, I remember the Zune. I was also at Microsoft, so
Right.
I could be with a fellow alum.
I saw that in the background. Yeah.
I mean, the audio experience in general. I'm also really passionate about music in my personal life, but I really love podcast content. So when the opportunity jumped, I was excited to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was on the Messenger web team. I joined Facebook in 2020, January 2020. Messenger web, just honestly, the camaraderie, getting to work on the web space was just something I was super passionate about. But I've been doing it for I actually moved to San Francisco last year during quarantine. So I actually didn't have a lot of built in that I could, trouble with. And so I got really into podcasts. Like I already listened to podcasts, but it was just a totally different experience. So that whole people are passionate about podcasts. People are feel connected to those hosts, about the content they really like that is me. I feel that deeply. And so I really felt that all year when I was kind of isolated out there. And then in April, BG announced that, publicly that we're focusing here. And I was like, I want in. And so it's been a ride since. It was really cool to see so many people across the company get really, really motivated to happen. So it's been a really fun ride.
Can you give us a rough estimate of how big the podcast team is at Facebook?
Not really. Basically, kind of like core teams, and then we obviously are all part of one app, right? So there's a lot of collaboration. What we're going to be offering. A lot of this is already built in frameworks that we're looking to leverage. So I'm not sure I could really give you, a precise number about how big the team is.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's various team members that just touch a little piece of the podcast. It's not their core, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you think about now we may expand to, multiple pages or groups or what have you, people that are across different kind of partner teams. So it's really fun how much we actually collaborate to bring a single product to life within the app.
And being that this show reaches 100% of content creators, and there may be there's a few outliers that are not, but what would you say to them if they're on the fence or hoping that they can, instead of using a page, have to create another destination a group, so I'm just kind of curious what advice you have for them.
Sorry, the question was for folks who are waiting for having
potentially
creating a page, that kind of stuff. So you have to create a page first before you can add a podcast to it. So that's the process.
Yeah. I think for groups, we are focusing on how do we expand the homes that a podcast can be on beyond a page. For now, though, my recommendation is that the page creation flow is really, really easy. And from the moment that you create the page and connect your RSS feed, your content's going to be on that page in no time. So there's no waiting period where you're waiting for that page to become established or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think what it was more about the content creators don't necessarily want to split their groups, or they got a group, they don't want to build a page because they're taking the time and energy. So my takeaway is if they want to be on now, they're gonna have to create a page, but if they keep their fingers crossed for a group implementation down the road.
Yeah, that would
way to share it over to a group.
Well, they could do that too. Yeah,
you
can always do that.
This stage, I mean, we're looking at the consumption to creator value flywheel. We need the inventory there, and we're not just ingesting. The user or the publisher has to go in and opt in and say, I want my content to be on Facebook. That's pretty important to us right now too. And want your content to there so that users can discover it and they can listen to it. And then obviously having more people continue to adopt the product and consume will actually create more of the creator value. So it's a nice flywheel. So we say it's a pretty lightweight investment. Go ahead and create that page if you don't have one, and then stay tuned for what's to come.
Yeah.
We've already kept you folks 15 minutes over the time that you agreed to be
Yeah.
on.
Thank
You
you.
can stay if you want. If you have to go, we understand. Rob, did you have any more hard pressing questions to ask, or?
No, I'm really excited to have you guys join the podcasting space, and I'll look forward to meeting both of you at some future conference or something like that. It'd be great to see the entourage of Facebook come in to get involved in the podcast community at a deeper level too. And this is a great
Yes.
first step because there's about 17,000 podcasters watch this show, so you're reaching a big chunk of them just in this show alone, and that opens the door. And then I don't know if you saw the newsletters covering this show today was also, helps expand that reach. So hopefully we'll be able to get more podcasters familiar with what you guys are doing and adding their podcasts to their pages. And I think it's good for the industry. And Todd and I just appreciate you guys jumping in. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
thank you both so much for having
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We can't wait to meet y'all in person. We're just getting started. So
Right.
we'll be back for sure.
Right. Awesome. All
right. Thank you so much. And look forward to see what's coming next.
Yeah.
Will
Well,
do.
we'll be
Thank
paying
you both.
attention. Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Rob,
Yeah.
there's I think we may have got a few tidbits in there today. There's some takeaways.
Well, that's what happens when you ask probing questions, right? They tend to give you some sort of an answer, and sometimes it can be at least a glimmer of hope. Anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting on the monetization piece.
Yeah.
That they're considering that, and I think some podcasters are going to be like, why? Well, why are not other platforms providing monetization opportunities?
Yeah. Well, some are trying to. Right?
Some are,
Right.
but I saw someone complaining about a specific provider today, and I'm like, what are they doing for you? Really? Are they really, besides getting your content for free, are they really doing anything for you?
Right.
And I think podcasters need to start asking that question more. And if there's a little bit of a rev share or money making opportunity within specific platforms, it ultimately, instead of becoming dollars, it could be, it could add up.
Yeah.
Across multiple platforms, but time will tell on where this goes.
Well, and also monetization is a two-headed opportunity too. It's monetization that benefits Facebook,
Right.
and then monetization that could be a revenue share with the creator. But and then there's premium, and then maybe there's some model that could be around a donation model. Who knows? There's a lot of experimentation and monetization right now in the podcasting space. Of course, that's been going on for years, but it's great. I mean, this is a platform that has close to 2 billion users. So I'm hard pressed to think of any other platform that's bigger than that.
So the thing that may have slipped, and I'm, if I was listening for things, and if the Facebook team is watching, that 170 million engagement number that she talked about briefly made my ears perk right up inside these these headphones I'm wearing. That's a number.
Yeah, that is a big
Yeah,
number.
that's a number.
And we're just really at the beginning of this. I mean, this isn't, what these guys are doing has global potential reach on a scale that really no other platform has besides maybe
Right.
Google. So,
And if you think about it's only on mobile right now, but that's probably, I engage Facebook on the desktop and on mobile both every day. And I guess from a podcast consumption standpoint, it makes more sense for it to be mobile. But I really hope that they will get the desktop version of that running too. That'll be an interesting interesting to see what that metric is. But at the same time, I think that the international expansion is probably more important than anything. And
Hmm.
probably the biggest complaint that we've seen about the platform is, non-availability in some of the big countries like Australia, UK, and other
Yeah.
countries that have big podcast implementation. They often, and rightly so, they feel left behind because, stuff gets rolled out in the United States first, and then it kind of trickles out throughout the rest of the world. But
Hmm.
everyone wants it now. But it was curious that you could have your podcast in your page and have an American audience listen to it if it originates in Australia. So that
Yeah.
was
Which
something.
for many shows, that's the consumption pattern currently for most for a lot of those shows that they publish. A lot of the listening happens in the U.S.
Yeah, a
So
question that we
yeah.
missed was, can we expect podcasts to roll out beyond Facebook to Instagram, for example?
Oh, right.
Yeah, and a
I
lot
was going
I've
to
heard.
ask them that because I think it was Irina. I think it was Irina that actually worked on Instagram. So for a while, right?
So maybe if the Facebook team's still listening, maybe they can give us some feedback and we can give it to the audience. But Instagram being what it is,
Well, I think it
I don't know if it's.
the Facebook built that first before they reach out too far on
I
that.
would think clips to Instagram would be
Yeah,
the route. I don't think you would ever put a full
right.
podcast on
It's a little bit of a competitor
Instagram.
to Headliner to some degree,
Right,
if
right.
you think about it. Right.
But if you think about the share tool, someone's just gonna have to play around with that and see how far you can share a podcast episode now, how you can slice it, dice it, where you can get it. I haven't played with the clip tool at all.
Yeah, I haven't either.
So those of you that have got pages, maybe should just go see,
Well,
you know?
and this show has a page on our pages page on
Right.
Facebook.
Yeah.
So it has the podcast in there. I I was going to ask them about video podcasts, but I
Oh,
guess we're already in there actually when you think about it.
yeah. Well, at least we are.
Yeah,
We're
right.
live, and that was another thing that I was monitoring today was a very hot and heavy thread on a podcasting forum that was people were pissed off that only the elite over at Spotify are able to get video. And
Right.
my comment back is, okay, there's plenty of opportunities to have your video distributed everywhere but Spotify. And if you're just focused solely on having your video on Spotify, sorry, something is, you've got a bit of a disconnect there. That is,
Yeah, that's a limited opportunity, not
yeah,
a
limited.
vast one. Right.
And
Yeah.
everyone's so enthralled, they forget about the bigger picture, what's currently available where you can be everywhere else except for that specific spot. For those of you that want to know, I'm in the Blueberry Podcasting Studio today. I'm down in Columbus versus in the studio in Michigan. So that's why I have the orange background. Nothing on the walls in here, Rob. So I need to get some
Yeah, you do. You
graphics
need to
up.
get something. Though it looks good. I like the orange background or the
Yeah.
yellowish orange.
And not too bad. I'm just using a
Cool.
webcam today too. No fancy cameras. So
Yeah, but yeah, I've been at the Advertise Week conference in in New York for the first couple days of this week. It's been interesting. That was an in-person hybrid event, and there was a bunch of panels talking about podcast advertising at this event. So
so how did that go?
it was it was good. It was good to see, kind of an in-person event on that side of the industry start to come back. I guess they hadn't held a in-person event in over 2 years, so it was a little bit of a hybrid, right? So they still did a virtual version, so a lot
Hmm.
of the sessions were done via, like Zoom meeting type
Right.
things. But I think they struggled a little bit to balance between people that were there in person and the virtual, and it felt a little heavy towards the virtual side.
Really?
Yeah, and there was quite a few people there in person, but a lot of the sessions that they had, um, they they pushed you towards going to a screen somewhere in the real world event to
Oh,
watch the virtual stuff instead of keeping people in the meeting rooms,
that's weird.
which is which I think Podcast Movement did a lot of that. So if they had any sessions that were virtual sessions, they still had them in a meeting room, but they just projected up onto the screen
I gotcha.
the virtual session, right? They
So
didn't do
how?
that at this event.
So who were the main suspects talking
Well, it was
podcasting?
a lot of folks from the radio side there
Hmm.
talking about stuff, and Pod Sites was there, and so it was a very much kind of a New York kind of vibe to it. I didn't see any of the pure play, like Pineapple Street Media was there as well. So, I mean, there was a little bit of the pure play podcast folks there, but most of the folks and most of the sponsors and stuff had strong radio to podcasting type of companies that were there.
Right.
The big thing that really stood out to me was Amazon ads. They were all over the place. They put on like a concert outside, all this kind of stuff. So they were a huge sport. They had their whole own track. So Amazon, and you start thinking about Amazon ads and what they did with acquiring Wondery and with the acquisition of Art19 and those kind of things. So you can see how they had a much broader strategy around advertising. So they're getting into all aspects of it, and from what I can tell, they're investing a lot of money and getting involved. So I think we're going to hear a lot more about Amazon advertising going forward.
So here's just a kind of a observation. The radio show for NAB has been
Hmm.
announced that they're going to combine it with the regular NAB show. So we're going to have the
Yeah,
regular NAB show and the radio show together. And I think it's a good move, but I just wonder if the NAB show has been hurt so bad from doing what they did and canceling the show at the last minute, pissed off so many people. I wonder if they now are struggling to fill the show floor for next year
yeah,
and
yeah.
having to do a Hail Mary here to get back on track.
Well, and you do have to wonder to some degree. I mean, this was speculated on stage as well at this this advertising thing. Is I saw a presenter get up and say that the whole COVID lockdown has really basically accelerated the move towards digital by probably 7 to 10 years within, let's say, 8 to 9 months. So we've fast forwarded into a much more digital world now than what probably would have normally happened if we hadn't had the COVID thing. So companies are really scrambling, I think, to embrace digital at a much faster rate than what they were probably set up to do. And
But
so we're starting to see that. I mean, I saw that at this event to some degree. It was like, well, it feels a little heavy towards the digital side. The in-person side feels like, it's almost like we're getting to a point where we're kind of almost giving up on the in-person side because,
that's
you know,
horrible.
I mean, a lot of people just don't come out. I think a lot of people said, yeah, I'll speak at your event, but I'll only do it, over Zoom or something like that. So I just wonder, and I hope this isn't happening, that we're shifting so far on this digital conversion that the in-person stuff kind of, takes a back seat to the digital side.
I think, from a conference standpoint, I don't think conferences can survive without exhibitors. And
Right.
if the exhibitors don't come, then they are going to only be able to afford virtual. And yet virtual, I, it's a matter of focus.
Right.
So
Yeah, it is.
I would not probably watch us. I would not if NAB was virtual next year, I wouldn't pay attention. I
Right.
would not pay attention to the sessions and the speakers and the keynotes. I wouldn't do that. I don't go to the shows for those personally. I don't go to the shows for those sessions either. I go to look at what's new and what's
Well, and to
what
meet people
announcements.
too, and to meet
And
people
yeah,
too.
and
Right. Right.
that's important. And going to vendors, and the vendors I deal with personally for my studio or for the gear, what's new, what you got going on. You can give them input. You have that face to face. Here's my issue. And you get the direct access to people that you never get direct access to the rest of the year. You have to go through support layer, you have to go
Yeah.
through, whatever it may be, and it's your one chance to say, "Listen, you screwed me on this feature you took away," or,
Hmm.
"Can you do this? Why can't we have this in this product?" And
Right.
oftentimes those go into wish list when they go back to the company that I remember a conversation I had with the folks that make Wirecast.
Hmm.
And I begged them. I said, "Please, please, please add NDI support to Wirecast. It'll make this product so much more vastly used. There will be less overhead on the processor use if you support NDI." And for those of you who don't know what NDI is, it's a video over IP. You don't have to
Hmm.
have a cable. It's all the video is routed through a Ethernet cable versus um, either a SDI port or other ways to get video through. And they can, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." And about 9 months later, I got an email from one of those, "Hey Todd, guess what? We're putting NDI in." And I was ecstatic because I knew what that was going to do for the product. But that probably would not have happened had we not been there. So saying, "This is the use case. This is the future. Please fix.
Right.
Please do this."
Right.
And so I worry about that. We just your team and my team, we just had people at Sheep Podcasts last week and did a debrief on it this morning, talking about the experience at Sheep Podcasts and what the
So what
podcasters
was
were.
the feedback so far?
Feedback. It was a smaller audience,
Hmm.
but our team got to spend a lot of time talking to content creators, and really it boils down to, it's the same topic that keeps coming up again and again and again. How do I grow my show? How
Right.
do I grow my show? It remains the number one issue and concern by podcasters broad and wide. Now, maybe the other shows that are bigger, that have these big networks, are not so worried about growth because they have built-in growth because of the associations they have. But the independent content creators, it's all about growth and a few other things too. But um, it was the first time we got an opportunity to get feedback from our customers on face to face on how they like our new dashboard, and
Hmm.
everything came out of that. We were real happy with that feedback. So for us, it's a validation that what we did was right. At the same time, you get input on, okay, can you tweak this or tweak that? So they brought those ideas back too. So
Hmm.
that type of interaction will never happen in a virtual event.
Yeah, I found at this advertising event that I went to, I would say about a third of the sessions, maybe more of the sessions that I wanted to at least hear that were podcast, or audio related. I had to actually listen on my phone, off of a web browser to those sessions because they weren't done in person; they were done virtually. So those that attended couldn't actually attend all the sessions. They could only access them through their phone or some presentation screen in the venue. So I thought that that was an interesting discouragement of being in person. Now, granted, the advantage of being in person is that you're in person and you can actually meet other people that are there in person. But
So
um,
what was the head count? Did they show how many people were listening to those sessions?
no, I couldn't actually see that. But
It wasn't
it,
like here where I can see how many people are on YouTube and how many are on
yeah, I would say
Facebook.
that there was an entire track done by Amazon Web Services or Amazon Ads, an entire track over the 4 days, and the conference is going on today too, was all virtual. The whole thing, top to the whole all day long. They just had sessions after sessions after sessions going all day, and then a few other tracks had maybe half of them that were done on stage, and half of them were done virtual. So you had this, but people paid like $600 plus to be there in person. and those that attended virtually only paid $200.
Hmm.
So you had this. They were trying to walk this line between value and I think the value of in person is just being there in person,
So
right?
were there actually exhibitors there too?
Yeah,
Well, they
yeah,
got totally screwed.
yeah.
There's no
So
way I would do that.
yeah, I mean, and many of the exhibitors didn't even have staff there. I mean, a lot of them were larger companies, Microsoft,
So what do
Amazon,
you
stuff
mean
like
they
that.
didn't have staff? They had nobody in the booth?
They had signage up that was like, 20 by 30 signage, or a section that had a place to sit down that was like wall to wall, like Roku had a section that was all branded Roku, but there was nobody there from Roku that I could see.
That's bizarre.
So it was almost like some of these companies maybe have travel bans still, that they can throw up a bunch of materials, a bunch of visuals,
Hmm.
but not have to send any staff or do everything virtual, but yet they can still have a physical world presence. I just worry that there's going to be more of that coming. I think it depends on what happens with the COVID stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm headed to Austin on Sunday, going down
Yeah,
for a regional SHRM event
yeah,
and exhibiting down there. So I'll
right,
let you know when I get back. Matter of fact, there'll be no show next Wednesday because of that.
right.
I'll be being still in Austin, but
Yeah, I think
um,
it was great to have Facebook on the show
yeah,
today.
yeah,
I've been trying to get them on the show for many months now, actually. So it was great that we actually made it through the process of getting approval for that. And I thought it went well.
yeah, I think it did.
Yeah,
We had a pretty good audience on. A little bit of it's dropped off since the Facebook team left,
sure.
as you would expect. But yeah, I want to thank Podcast Business Journal, Pod News for promoting the appearance today, and of course, people will catch us via the regular podcast as well. But
So
I've been
anything
pretty,
new on your side that you've seen, Todd, going on in the medium?
to be honest with you, this week I've been pretty focused with the team
Yeah,
here
I've been.
in the office here in Columbus, and we're working on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I
So
haven't either. Yeah,
a quick down and back. I head back to Michigan on Thursday, and then fly out Sunday for Austin. So I'm kind of like a guppy out of a fishbowl right now, trying to keep up with everything. I got my social media team here, and they did my social media interns did a Instagram takeover today. So if any of you are on Instagram, go to blueberry_podcasting, and they're raging it right now with. I didn't know that was such a thing. They come storming into the office saying, "We're doing an Instagram takeover," and I'm like, "What is that?"
yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not even sure what that is either. But
Uh,
um, yeah, I think that at least the next event I'm heading down to is a Podfest Origins event down in Tampa. The first week in November? I think it is. Yeah.
yeah, if
So
everything goes, unless I don't think I know anything. I think this is the last trip for the year until next year, until probably. Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff in May, so my May is screwed for
oh
next
yeah,
year already.
March and May are going to be busy months
Yeah, eh,
for events.
but
Hopefully.
stuff is going early next year because of cancellations in 21. So they're kicking those events off that would normally be in the fall. They're going in the spring. So it's
Yeah.
going to
So
be interesting to watch.
when's the proposed NEB event? Is that going to be in April again?
Oh, let's look
I'm
here.
trying to
See if I
remember.
can look at the event. NAB 2022. Let's see here. Let's look. What does
And
Google say?
most
April 23rd to
podcasters don't.
27th. Yep.
So you
So
say April 23rd?
April 23rd. Yeah, and
Or
I'm
27th?
debating whether to go. I really am. With this monkey business that they pulled here recently.
Yeah, but you already
Um,
paid probably for your booth, right?
yeah, but you oh yeah, you can get your money back over 3 or 4 years.
Right. Yeah,
So,
that's kind of how I'm looking at it too. I don't know that they're going to hold their New York event either.
well, no, they already said the radio show is wrapped up. No more radio
No,
show.
no, No, that's
Oh,
separate. The NAB New York show was usually held
okay.
in like February.
Yeah, I don't know. But
I don't.
CES is still on. That's still going. So I've
Right.
got my hotel reservations for that. And of course, I go there in a different capacity. I don't go to CES. I go to CES for my personal show,
Mm-hmm.
not for Blueberries. I take PTO for that. But um, so what did you guys think about the Facebook team? Those of you that are watching live, I mean, those of you on most of the folks are on YouTube today. What say you? Anything new? What was your reaction? It is interesting that there was kind of a contradiction made though about hosting because one of the Facebook member teams said, "Yeah, we're going to host podcasts," and the other one said, "No, we're not." So, um, interesting,
Well, they did talk about hosting the clips, right?
right?
So, which um, which I know most of the platforms that do clips, that's typically what they do, even though it's not ideal unless there's some sort of separate metrics that's available there. But
Yeah. Well, they'll get play metrics and stuff, I'm sure, and it's good that they're looking at doing, giving the podcaster some client side data.
mm-hmm,
That was something I talked to them very early on about. You want to endear yourself to the podcasting community. You hook them up with some stats.
mm-hmm.
So no one's making, if you don't, YouTube folks, don't be shy.
Yeah, I did
But
see, Todd, did you see the article that was put out in and maybe this has been out for a while. I'm trying to find a date here, but Apple put out an article talking about automatic downloads
oh
on
yeah,
Apple
that
Podcasts.
yeah lays out all the rules.
Right. I thought
And
it was an interesting
yeah, and
article.
most
Yeah,
and 95% of the stuff that we'd kind of figured out was confirmed. So, but
right,
there's no more speculation. It's laid out in black and white what they do.
right. And it says there are automatic downloads to Apple Watch. Looks like
Well, that's
too.
why all of us quit counting Apple
Right.
Watch because of the
Yeah, but is it direct downloads just to the watch, or is it
mhm,
go through the phone? Was
it's
always the question.
yeah. Well, it looks like it goes directly to the
Watch.
watch,
That's if your watch has its own data connection, right?
or it's on Wi-Fi. Yeah, when it
Or on
connects to
Wi-Fi,
yeah.
right, right. That'll work too.
Hmm.
And it talks about when automatic downloads are paused,
Mhm.
which I think we've known that for a while, but it
Yeah, but
says
it's often ignored, and that's one of the things I've told podcasters from the beginning. If you want to look at really how your audience is doing,
right.
you got to look over time. You can't look over an individual show. You got to look at 90 days. You can't look at one episode because someone may leave and may come back. You have to pay
Yeah, if a
attention to that.
listener hasn't listened to an episode of your podcast in more than 15 days, it gets paused.
It gets paused.
Yeah.
And then when it does restart, it re-downloads the last 3. So that is an interesting
Spike in your numbers.
right. Now the question is, if people go back and listen to 3. Now, I was on my way drive down here. I got a 3-hour and 15-minute drive. I was able to get 1 episode in of a favorite show that I listened to, and then on the way back, I'll listen to another episode. But I hadn't listened to a few episodes, and I was in that same situation where it asked me, "Do you want to resume downloading the show?" And I said yes, but I did miss a few in between. So
Yeah, it says here automatic downloads will not use cellular data by default.
yeah,
So
you
what
have to enable it, or you have to tell it to do it.
Yep. Yeah, which makes sense.
Actually, I don't know if you enable it. I think you have to agree to use, because I've been in an airplane before. I'm like, whoops, I need an episode or two that I hadn't listened to another show. And actually, quote unquote, downloaded an episode while we were taxiing. Not that I had my mobile plan turned on or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can block all downloads over mobile connections, right?
Yeah, which makes sense.
And it also can prompt you if you set it to ask if it's over 200 megabytes in size too. Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
some big audio files if you're
Well,
over
it's a
200
big audio
megs.
file, right? It's
Yeah.
those that are out there doing 256K audio files, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else going on, Todd, that's of note.
Nothing of consequence.
Right.
I think that we are in a well, I had a conversation with an individual about the space. And the question I was asked was, which company's going to get bought next? I'm like, well, I said, it's going to be small players. They're going to come in or some sort of, investment groups. I don't think you're going to see, any more, Facebook may buy somebody or two, but I don't think that, or maybe they won't,
Well,
but
I mean, I'm certainly, a Facebook, a Google. Um, I think those are the two
yeah.
ones that, come to mind as potential.
But why would those folks buy anything when they've got,
That's a
they're
good question, right?
you know, they're pretty well set, they got development teams that are as big as small cities.
Yeah, and you look at a Facebook, and it may not make sense for them to do that kind of thing with their current model that they have, right?
Mhm.
Where, a company like Amazon, it makes a lot makes a lot of sense what they're doing.
So, yeah,
So,
I've got a bunch of my team members that go into the big Amazon event out in Vegas. I think it's called reInvent. So my
hmm,
dev team, pretty much my entire dev team goes to that event and attends the sessions, and
hmm.
they always come back with new tricks up their sleeve. We've got a couple of people at the company that have achieved certain levels of um, integration qualifications with Amazon where they don't have to pay for tickets either. They get their tickets for free.
Todd, did you hear the rumor that's flying around about Tesla at
No.
all? That there's kind of backdoor rumors that Tesla may be in the development phase of creating a new smartphone,
Hmm.
which means I don't know what
Hmm.
that means. If they're creating their own operating system, which
Hmm.
means that could be another potential
Hmm.
long-term large listening platform.
Hmm.
If you think about their car, you think about mobile, you think about what they're doing
Starlink.
with technology, just in general, they're becoming, and I think people are starting to awaken to what is potential with Tesla.
Well,
Um,
I'll just say this, Elon, if you're listening, where the hell is my Starlink? I'm.
I
You
don't think
told
he's
me.
launching the satellites fast enough, I
Well,
think is
the
the
the the
problem.
first layer is made, and you told me in my area late fall or,
Well, a lot of people have been canceling those reservations
good.
as
I'm
of
glad
late,
they are.
is it's what I'm hearing.
I'm glad they're canceling the reservations 'cause, it makes me get closer to the top of the list then. Why would they be canceling those reservations?
I don't know why they would be either.
But,
I think he said the last interview that I saw with him, I think he said there was 1,500 satellites up for Starlink right now. His goal is to get 30,000,
right, right.
which will cover the whole globe.
Yeah, they're starting their second layer now with, launches out of,
Right.
Vandenberg. But I tell you, it's one of those things where, I've been planning all summer to have that thing, but with the issue they have right now is they're affected by the chip shortage as well, and they can only create 5,000 terminals a week.
I mean, that's
So
the thing that's really, I think, potentially pushing this thing with Tesla is the fact that the chip shortage, Tesla is making their own chips.
smart. Oh,
So
and
they're
look what Apple did. That
they're
was
yeah, right.
that
A
very juicy,
long
salivating
long time
app
ago they did.
that Apple MacBook Pro with the M1 Pro and the M1 Max. I had a friend that, ordered the M1 Pro, immediately as soon as the, store was open, and it took him 30 minutes to get his order through because their site went to an absolute crawl from the influx of orders.
Right.
I'm guarantee you that Apple has hit a absolute home run. I got a graphics guy in the office today. I said, "What do you think about that M1 Pro?" And he says, "You gonna get me an M1 Max?" And I'm like, "Well," I said, "listen, how old's your computer?" And so I don't need that type of heavy lifting, but the graphics processing people are going crazy on this thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing with what Tesla's doing. They're building a processor that will support their full self-driving platform, plus be powerful enough to deliver console level video experiences in the car.
Well,
So you start
if they
thinking
can do it,
about
they can.
right. If you start thinking about taking that technology out to robots, out to mobile devices, computers, they could be competing directly with Apple.
If you look at what Tesla did, and we've talked about it in the show already, and what is the reason for Starlink? The reason for Starlink is
Oh,
that
I get
Elon
that.
Musk
Yeah.
has to have a ongoing revenue line that they're reoccurring every monthly. Guys like me get send him $100 every month to fund going to Mars.
Right. Well, that and if you think about it, if he builds all these Tesla robots, and millions of Tesla vehicles, those satellites will be able to communicate with those devices from anywhere on the
Absolutely.
planet.
Hmm.
For software downloads, install upgrades, monitoring activities. He's also in the process of launching car insurance. And that's going to take a constant stream of data going up to the cloud around driver usage.
And if you look at the
Right.
ability to, um, if they get this monster rocket that's got 37 or 40 Raptor engines compared to the Falcon, and they're going to be able
It's
to put
fully
they're
reusable.
right,
Right.
and they're going to be able to put 1,000 or 2,000 Starlink antennas in orbit at once versus 160 or whatever their current lift limit is on the Falcon 9. So when you need 30, you think, oh, how's he going to get? He's going to have to do 3,000 or 1,500 launches to get that many satellites up. No, 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 he won't. He'll just need to do 15 launches with that big lift, and he's done. So yeah, people underestimate this dude. Now he's got to get it flown and land it and not blow it up and crash, and they're gonna explode if you doing that. But
Well, he's had a really strong history of um, creating a lot of online buzz around all of his rockets blowing up on the launch pad. So
so this will
I
be a
think it's a
little more.
PR strategy, Todd.
This will be a little more expensive boom when you have that many Raptors underneath there. But
Right. Right.
time will tell what
Right.
happens. But
Yeah.
anyway, Rob, we're
We're
about
off.
in. We're getting close to the end here.
Okay.
We actually started a little early today, so
Yeah. That was great.
ha.
All right. All right. So we're off next week then.
Yes, we are. I'm again. I'll be in Austin. Anybody's in Austin, give me a shout out. I did drop the email to Adam, see if he wanted to get together, and learned a
We
little
should
bit of information about he's not quite in Austin anymore. So
you should pop in and see Joe Rogan while you're down there.
okay, yeah. Well, I'm sure I would just be invited in. It's not like Joe and I are on a first name basis. You're gonna get me an introduction there, Rob, or and that'd be the hell, man. That would be a coup to get on Joe Rogan's show.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Talk about
A-
podcasting with him.
Anyone got a connection with Joe? Hook a brother up.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well,
we'll talk
I'll
aliens, anything.
I'll start. So who else should I get on the show next, Todd? Do you think?
Maybe we need to start making the rounds. It's been a while since we talked to some of these folks. So maybe get Amazon back on. Maybe get
I get Chris Kremitzos back on.
yeah, he'd be good to have on.
It'd be good to get somebody from Google to fill us in on what's going on over there. But
Yeah, anybody got a connection with Google?
we used to.
Yeah.
I don't know where everybody is now, but everybody's gone. So
Or do
yeah.
you, as a listening audience, have a suggestion for us on who you want us to try to swoop in? getting these big companies in is hard. Rob did a lot of work. So Rob, good job on doing the background legwork here to get the Facebook team on.
Yeah, I think it was an exclusive. So this was the first time, and they have a reputation for not doing interviews. So this is for probably pretty valid PR reasons.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll come back, and I hope everyone enjoyed today's commentary with them.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, we're going to get out of here. I'm Todd at blueberry.com and on Twitter at Geek News.
And I'm on Twitter as well at Rob Greenlee, and that's with 2 E's on the end. And I can be reached off my own website as well, robgreenlee.com. And then you can send me an email if you want, robg@libsyn.com, and that's libsyn.com.
And everything held tight here with Riverside today. So I'm going to thank Riverside for supporting us doing the podcast today here from the Placia Studios.